Hello there, friends and RC family. My name is Alec from High Noon Hobbies, and if you're new to this channel, I very much appreciate you checking it out. I hope you will stick around, watch at least this video, see if this content seems worth your while, and consider subscribing so that then I can say to you, if you aren't new here, welcome back to yet another Friday upload. This one is going to be kind of a first of its kind for the channel. Hopefully we get to do more videos like this. I think this is going to be a really fun one, but I hope you'll stick around and enjoy it with me. And if you do like the format and everything like that, go ahead and at the end of the video, give it a like to let me know that you enjoyed it so I can keep making content like this for you. First thing to address is going to be that a little while ago we hit a pretty big milestone for the channel. We hit 2,000 subscribers on the channel, which was absolutely incredible. It's an astonishing show of support from all of you, and I appreciate it so much. It means the world to me, and so I want to give back to all of you guys, and I'm going to be doing a 2,000 subscriber giveaway. We are a little bit above 2,000 subscribers now, so it's not exactly the 2,000 subscriber giveaway, but that's what we're calling it the 2K giveaway. And all of the rest of you who have joined since the 2,000th subscriber, I really appreciate you as well, and figure you all deserve to be included in this since I've been slacking. So, how do you get entered in the 2,000 subscriber giveaway? Well, we are going to be hosting it on the highnoonhobby.com website, so you can check out my website. It is in the link in the description, and what you're going to do is there's actually a link to the 2K giveaway down in the description. You're going to click that link. It goes to the High Noon Hobby website. You're going to put your name and your email address into that little form so that we can contact you if you end up being the winner. And you got to get in before December 11:59 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on December 30th, 2022. And that's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. It'll ask if you want to be a part of our email list for future giveaways and all sorts of stuff like that, and for some other stuff that I'm going to be talking about here in a minute. But that's literally it, and you'll be entered into the giveaway, and you are going to be entered to win this sweet Shift RC XB servo, which is a super high voltage and high speed servo. This is going to be great for a comp rig. Throw it in there, and I believe that this is just throw it right in. There's no direct power necessary on that one, so it's super easy to install. And then you're also going to get your choice of one piece of 2023 High Noon Hobby merch. So that is actually also live on the website right now, which kind of leads us into our next topic. But you're going to have a whole slew of different amazing options to choose from as the winner, and you'll get to choose from a hoodie. You can choose from the new High Noon Hobbies logo hoodie. You can choose, and that's going to be a camo, like the black camo hoodie. You got man, freaking tie-dye options. If you want tie-dye, you got dad hats, you got beanies, you got all sorts of new t-shirt options. There's a ton of stuff on there to choose from as the winner. So you get this XB servo, and you'll get your choice of one piece of merch from the 2023 merch line. So that kind of leads us into what we got to talk about next, which is going to be that the 2023 merch drop is now live on the website early, so you can get it in time for the holidays. And there are some really sweet designs on there, so definitely go and check them out. If anything, I hope the designs at least give you a laugh, or you enjoy some of them. Even if you can't end up getting some of the merch for the holiday season, that's totally understandable. I get it, I'm broke as well. The broken stoked one might fit you well, as it does for me. But there's definitely a lot of sweet designs on there. Definitely go and check those out. And we are going to be doing the Utah Four-Wheel Drive Association donation for the 2022 year. As promised, 50% of all of the profits from the merch go to a cause, and this year they're going to the Utah Four-Wheel Drive Association. Thank you to the early on community that helped me. The early High Noon Hobby community definitely helped me figure out that that was the best organization to give our profits to for this year. So 50% of the profits are going, and we're going to donate that at the same time live that we announce the winner of the High Noon Hobby giveaway, which is going to be on the January 1st, 2023. 2023. So all of this is happening. There's a ton of stuff going on. Definitely keep your eyes peeled and your ears. Do you have eels? Your ears tuned in to all of the different stuff that's happening, so that you know you can participate in all of this. But definitely go to that giveaway link, put in your name, put in your email. You'll get entered to win all of this awesome stuff. And then you can also follow along as we give 50% of the profits from the 2022 season to the Utah Four-Wheel Drive Association. With that comes a few new changes, which are being reflected on the website right now with the 2023 merch drop. So basically, we are no longer donating 50% of all profits to a one given cause in a given year. And I know how that sounds, but I think I've made it better. And let me explain. So instead of 50% of all the profits, we're going to have 100% of profits from specific items in the store going to specific causes. So to kind of kick that off, the way that I'm going to do it initially is with patches. I'd love to do a patch of the month, but I am incapable of creating and designing and fulfilling that many patches every single month. So we're going to do it every couple months to start. But starting in January, so also keep your eyes peeled, ears, eels, sticky for the patch of the month, so to speak, that's going to start in January, and I'll be announcing the first cause. But we're going to be donating to all sorts of different causes this next year, this 23 season. I figure it's kind of a better way to do it. We're still crawling for a cause, but we're just crawling for a few different causes now, and I think that that is a better way to be able to kind of shift directions and allow the community to choose what happens to the money that you guys want to share with me and want to share with the channel and share with these great causes. Being able to create a product every couple months so that we can have different causes every couple months, and we can kind of poll the community, see what you guys want to contribute your funds to next. I think that's going to be a really good way to do it, and that also allows me to just have some OG High Noon Hobby merch on there, which the profits from that will go to supporting our future events and our future seasons as well, because we've got a whole bunch of different stuff that's kind of getting planned right now, and we're going to need all the support that we can get from you guys to make all of that happen. So that's, that was a lot to cover. That was like 8 minutes to cover before we even got to the real video, but that is all stuff that I think is juicy, good information that will keep you guys interested. Hopefully this intro didn't lose too many of you guys, but that is really what I've got for you there. Now we are going to get into the real video. Now, what is the real video? Well, I am going to, this is excitement in a different way. I'm going to help you build an RC Speedy C3 with a VFD transmission, a VFD twin transmission with the dig and overdrive from Vanquish. So we're going to build an RC Speedy C3 caged chassis, a tube chassis together, and if you're interested in purchasing one of these but you don't know for sure yet if you want to do it, I still would recommend that you kind of watch through the build video, or at least kind of skim through parts of it to see if that looks like something that you would want to, or that you would enjoy, want to do, or enjoy doing. But either way, you can also skip to the end of the video where we go down to St. George, sort of St. George, Hurricane, Utah, and we do some testing of this chassis. You can see what it can be put up to. So without further ado, we'll get straight into the build speed run, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. I hope you guys get into the giveaway, and let's do that now. Let's do the build. Okay, let's do it. All right, guys, I'm going to kind of try to make this a step-by-step speed run of the RC Speedy C3 chassis, and I'm going to try to give you everything that you do need and none of the stuff that you don't. So I'm going to go step by step. The first thing is that you're going to get, well, the first thing is to unbox it, and there is an incredible amount of packing peanuts. So you have to figure out some way to unbox it without making a total mess of your entire house. That's a challenge unto itself. Once you've got it out of the box and you've got all the pieces and doodads out of the box as well. You're gonna wanna keep everything separated, but organized. You know, it's good to have like a parts tray or a parts bin to start organizing things into. There's lots of parts that come in bags that are not labeled or aren't labeled particularly well, and so you'll wanna make sure that you don't lose anything and that you kind of keep track of it all and you can see it all and easily access it. The bigger the build space that you're using for this process, probably the better. I was using basically an entire shop table, and I had cleared off the entire table so that I could just take up the entire thing, and then I was strewn onto the floor everywhere, but try to keep your stuff as organized as you can. The next step is going to be remove the hood from the RC Speedy. It is a beautiful, beautiful hood on the C3, but you're going to want to get rid of that thing so that you can work on everything as you're putting it together. It just makes it a little bit easier, and also you don't want to ding it up or anything like that as you're working on it. So I removed the hood entirely, as well as that kind of further back piece. So both pieces of the hood, I got rid of both of those for the building process basically. Then I used the included spacers. These basically just look like really, really thick washers, obviously, and you're gonna use those as well as the forward mounting points that can kind of help guide you as to how to place the skid into the chassis. And obviously, if you know anything about the VFD, you have to build your whole transmission skid assembly together, but then you can just throw it in there, which is really nice, and you can use those included spacers to do so. Once you get it all put in there, the next thing that you're going to do is install the dig and overdrive servos into the servo plates that are included. Now that's, if you're going to be using those, you'll want to have those servos into the plates. You don't need to put the plates into the truck first. In fact, you don't want to do that. You want to put the servos basically upside down into those servo plates, and then you will put those into the truck after you've got them onto the plates. Next thing you're going to want to do is build up your link set. I kind of made the mistake of building links as I went, and that became very annoying. I would definitely recommend building all of your links right at the very beginning, and then you have everything available to you. Unless you're going to get confused on which ones are which, then don't do that and just build them section by section. But I would definitely recommend, if you don't want to get burnt out on building links, well, you're probably going to get burnt out either way, but just build them all right at the beginning. I went with the RC Speedy link set, so my link set was basically already ready to go for the chassis. That means that I also would use the RC Speedy tabs that are supplied, that basically are on the outside of where your skid plate sits. So you'll use those tabs if you use the RC Speedy links. Otherwise, you will use the tabs that come on your skid plate, so that those links match up. You may have to do some link geometry thinking if you're using the skid plate, because it might be a little bit too short of a wheelbase for what you're looking for, but obviously you can lengthen things, and if you've got a few extra links laying around, that would definitely make that process a lot easier. I ended up going with the RC Speedy link set just so that I could avoid all of that, and I knew that it would work the first time around, and it did. So yeah, good call, Alec. I went ahead and installed the rear axle first. I got the trailing arms set. Basically, as I mentioned, I did the RC Speedy link set, so I did the trailing arm set, and doesn't really matter what order you put the links on, but you're going to want to do, you know, obviously when you're putting the transmission on, or the axle on, you'll put either top links or bottom links on. For the rear axle, it doesn't really matter which ones you do first. Once you get the rear axle installed with the links, you'll want to install your suspension components. Obviously, because I was using those trailing arms, my suspension components went onto the trailing arms. So I got the shocks installed, and then if you ordered the bump stops and the sway bar, the rear sway bar, you can also install those things at the same time. There's no reason that you can't install those right as you're installing the axle and everything else. I will mention, for those of you who are interested in it, I do believe that the C3 chassis has been kind of redesigned to support rear steer. So if that's something that you are interested in, there is space for a rear steer servo now, and you can make all of that work. I didn't end up going with that option on mine, but it is definitely a cool option. I just wanted to use the Phoenix axles. I wanted to use the F10s. I thought that they looked really pretty, especially the metal ones that I got, but you can now use axles. You could even use like just an F10 as a front rear steering axle. So something to consider. Next, you're going to want to install the servo mount. That gives you the panhard mount, so you can start working on the front axle. The servo mount that I went with was the dual servo mount. I went with that just so that I could have another servo or another servo winch on the inside if I really if it so pleased me. But it also, like I mentioned, it gives you that panhard mount, so you can now start working on the front axle and getting that installed. So you can start working on the top links to it first and the bottom links of the front axle, and with the bottom links obviously on the F10 axles if you're matching up with the VFD twin kit that you've got so far. You can use you can install the suspension at the same time that you're installing the lower links, basically. Once you've got the front axle basically installed, you want to install the steering servo, the servo horn obviously, and the steering links. But make sure that if you don't have the servo centered, that you're not screwing down your servo horn all the way yet, that you're either just leaving it drooping off, or that you've got it on, but you know before you turn the rig on that you're going to want to have to pull that off so that you can get that steering servo centered. That's pretty standard stuff, but I just want to I'm not going to be the one to make you make that mistake. Next, kind of the most finicky part about getting the DIG and OD servos to work is obviously figuring out how the stock steering links, or the stock shift links, if those linkages are going to still work. For me, I was able to make them work. You just kind of have to finesse where your servo horn is. If you're going to kind of be playing around with where your servo horn is, make sure you're keeping that servo centered, or keeping in mind that the servo is not centered if you're playing around with that, because you don't want to turn the rig on and have that get thrown all over the place and potentially damage either those servos or the transmission itself. That would just be stupid, and you know that we don't do stupid things around here, obviously. But no, seriously, don't do that. Make sure that as you're playing with this, you're keeping in mind that those servos need to stay centered as well, and that you're keeping as you turn your radio on for the first time, you want to make sure that all of those endpoints are set really low so that you're not getting anything thrown into crazy locations. But I was able to make the stock Vanquish linkages, the links that they use for the overdrive and the DIG servos to connect those to the little levers on the transmission. I was able to get those to work, so I have confidence that you can do the same as well. Okay, once that's done, if you purchase the scale seats, you can take the little mounting plate for the scale seats and you can install the lower portions of those seats, and you can kind of eyeball where those seats are supposed to be on that plate by placing the plate into the truck, and then the seats onto the plate, and you can see where the seats make sense to be. And then you can install the lower halves of those seats onto the mounting plate, put the plate into the truck, and then you can mount the upper halves of those seats onto the lower halves once you've got the plate all in there. If you try to mount it with it fully assembled, good luck getting everything to fit in there. You're going to have to probably do the lower halves first and then put the upper halves in after you've got it all kind of situated in there. Once you got the seats in, you can also do the scale fuel cell. If I didn't mention it, at any point really you can put once you've got the skid plate in there and the transmission's already in there and everything, you can put that battery tray on top of the transmission. One thing I also didn't mention is the battery tray, if you are going to use it, which it's nice, it's got a cutout in the dashboard and everything, so it works pretty well, but for your battery, obviously, to slide in and out. But you won't be able to use the shift levers that come on the Vanquish transmission. So you'll want to definitely build that transmission or swap it out for the flat plate that comes with that kit, so that you're not banging those transmission levers on the battery plate. If you don't use the battery tray, then perfect. You got a little shift lever there, which is pretty cool. But I don't know where you're going to put your battery, so I wasn't able to figure that one out. I ended up using the battery tray and having to use the flat plate on top of the VFD twin transmission. You can put the ESC in now. That's when I put the ESC in, at least, and I was able to get my Mamba X to fit in between the two seats. I did have to lift up the battery tray just a little bit to get it to kind of slide in there, and then I just used double-sided sticky tape to get it to sit down in there nicely. The 40-pound double-sided sticky tape has never let me down. I don't think it's going to let me down now, and that's a really nice looking place for that Mamba X to go, right in the middle of that chassis. All right, at this point, you can install your front lights if you opted to include those, whatever version, variety, flavor you got from RC Speedy. There's tons of different options. I went with the bucket lights. I thought that they looked super cool in scale and very U4. So I just got a thing for Casey lights, so now I got Casey lights on my scale rig. I thought that those looked really cool. They also have like the dual light bar, single light bar, all sorts of different options for lighting situations on the RC Speedy. Typically they're terminated in just like whatever, so you may have to re-terminate them just depending on what type of light controller you're using, but that's just something easy that you can do that doesn't take too much time, or oftentimes a lot of light controllers you can also just use raw wires as well, just depends on what you're doing, but those lights will generally work with pretty much anything. You can then install the winch. I opted to go with the RC 4-wheel drive winch here, obviously the Warren winch, the super tall, beefy boy. It barely fits in there, but it does fit in there, and then you can route the wiring for that, and I opted for the regular RC 4-wheel drive winch controller. Not my favorite option. I'll probably be going with something different in the future, but for now it does work, and it does provide a functional winching option, which is good for a rig of this heft. All right, now we're basically almost totally done. You're going to do the rear light bar, and after that you're going to route all your wires, all your cables and everything to the fuel cell. Plug everything that you need into the receiver, and then obviously power on, endpoint adjustments, all that sort of stuff. You might need to unscrew the rear light bar to screw the fuel cell shut, but I did not have to do that, so just something to consider. It is kind of a weird angle to get a screwdriver into to screw the 2 back screws in that go right underneath the rear light bar. Last few little pieces, obviously the steering wheel installed on the dashboard. If you included that in your kit, get that installed on there. I ended up using double-sided sticky tape to install the dashboard as well. Did that for a couple reasons. For one, the dashboard screw holes are inaccessible once you put the dig servo and the overdrive servo in there. So that is something to consider if you're going to build this yourself. Maybe sorry that I didn't include this until now, but do it earlier so you can actually get to those screw holes. But the double-sided sticky tape option, I will give myself credit to this. You could also use like Velcro. Velcro would probably be better for what I'm talking about, because the next reason I did it is so that I can fit a slightly bigger battery underneath that dashboard, and if I need to, I can actually pop the dashboard up a little bit and then get that battery in there and then push the dashboard back down. It works pretty well for me. I think it'll work pretty well for you, and the dashboard doesn't like rattle or anything like that in my solution, so I can't see why it would in yours. It's super lightweight, so I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, so steering wheel on the dashboard on the interior, and then a hood installed back on the rig, which is going to be a super major pain in your booty. RC Speedy, I wish that you included like a magnet mounting solution. I know that that's a lot to ask, but some sort of magnet mounting solution for the hood would probably be my only gripe in this whole situation, because mounting the hood up, getting that all screwed in and everything like that was kind of annoying. And then if you want to pop the hood up, you have to undo 2 screws in my current configuration. I'm definitely going to be swapping that out for some magnets here very soon, and I will do another video on that. But now you're basically just panels and your tires, and you're good to go. Tires, battery, is that it? Yeah, tires, battery, controller, self, and then have some fun. Now you've got an RC Speedy build. So yeah. Hope you enjoyed the build, and now let's get to beating it a little bit, shall we? So for the testing portion of this video, I headed down with a few of the Northern Gents, Scumbag RC, the Jinja Ninja, or the head of the Nerds group, and of course Mike from Sons of Crawl, and Cletus. We headed down south to the Hurricane area, and we were lucky enough to get kind of guided around by West Desert Wheeler through this area near Hurricane. So this was a great chance to get to check out the RC Speedy and see how it performed. And honestly, I will say I was pretty blown away. I mean, I expected this rig to be incredibly top heavy and to really have some difficulty on technical obstacles, but as much fun as it was ripping through just the sand, it also seemed to actually stand out pretty well to some technical ascents. The tires obviously needed to be scrubbed in, so that was something that was hindering the performance of the rig, and it just wasn't really that tuned at all. But in general, this thing performed incredibly well. I ended up going with these RC four-wheel drive BF Goodrich KM3s, I believe, and these are weird because they're actually 2.2 wheel size, but they're like a 1.9 tire diameter, like a regular 475 tire. So interesting. I thought it actually ended up looking pretty cool. It wasn't what I had anticipated for this rig, but I quite enjoyed the look of it. As you can see here, this is actually an RC Speedy C2 chassis with a sweet Trail Hero livery. This is the Silver Squatch on Instagram. I'll link to him down below. But I just wanted to show the capabilities of a C chassis from RC Speedy that is actually built for performance. You can see that was a pretty nasty line. This one here also a very nasty line. We'll have a different angle on it in a second here, but I kind of wanted to show this top angle just to show how technical of a V-notch this was. And this RC Speedy C2 chassis really had no problem getting through there whatsoever, just maneuvering it like it was easy. And now he does not have the trailing arms set up on his rig anymore. He has opted to go for the regular 4-link setup on the rear, which is totally cool. I think I'm going to try to keep the trailing arms on there and get as much performance out of them as I can. Now you can see here, I'm going to try to attempt the same V-notch. It's going to take a bit more effort on my part, and I actually did have to hit this line probably 3 or 4 times to be able to get it down pat the way that he was able to, basically on the first try. But either way, I was proud that I was able to get through this line with the C3, especially with basically no tuning. This is just as out of the box as you can possibly get an RC Speedy. I threw it together a day before this, and this is just showing you what its potential is without any sort of tuning whatsoever. I will say the one thing that was probably hindering me the most on this run in terms of being able to really test the capabilities of it was that I did not set any drag brake for myself. Of course, when I went in to tune this Mamba X, I basically had 3 minutes to tune it in the morning before we headed down to southern Utah, and in the process I just totally spaced turning on any sort of drag brake. So I did have everything else tuned basically the way that I wanted it. I didn't have any of my throttle curves on it, so that's something that I added in after the fact as well. But that is one thing that was just a huge hindrance, was not having that drag brake. But you can see, even with the narrower profile that I have with these thinner tires on here, and definitely slightly skinnier hubs than the Silver Squatch has, we can see that the C3 chassis is still able to articulate, pull its way through, and kind of float its way over the areas that it's not able to make contact directly. So I was pretty impressed with that. Sway bar working well, definitely helping that rear tire float the way that it's supposed to, and that truck, I don't think that truck was meant to go through that line, at least in the state that it's in, but we made it work, and I was pretty proud of it. Now you can see here these trailing arms, definitely something new to me, definitely a catch point, having that metal trailing arm sitting down low. So something I'm going to have to get used to, but it was easily overcomable with just a little bit of throttle, or if you got the right angles on stuff, you just had to pay a little bit closer attention to it. But I was pretty impressed with the lines that this thing was able to pull off. Obviously that VFD twin transmission came into play quite a few times. I was dealing with managing the heavy weight of this rig, but trying to get it to go, hello doggy tail, trying to get it to go up some stuff that it probably shouldn't, and the dig and overdrive functions worked really well for me. I set it to a 3 position, the way that I've heard a lot of people do from time to time, where you basically have a neutral function for the front and the rear. So you are able to, instead of just going straight from drive in the rear, let's say drive in the rear to dig in the rear, you can actually go from drive in the rear to neutral in the rear and then to dig in the rear. Pretty cool feature, although maybe something that I'll put on like some sort of a toggle switch in the future, because having to cycle through all 3 of those functions was certainly not ideal. When you needed to grab dig and you had to cycle through a neutral function, it definitely screwed things up from time to time. Overall, though, you can see here we're getting a little bit of the kind of side hill or the ability of this rig to do kind of some more technical ascents that you're really at a bit of an angle here for. I tried to hit this a little bit too far to the right, and then I had to work my way back down, and without that drag brake, it was just an absolute pain in the butt. And then once I got up to the top, in typical high noon fashion, totally screwed it up and ended up flipping myself back over. And that was not the last time, probably not the first nor the last time that this RC Speedy took a fall this day. Definitely was not easy on it. I tried not to save it and let it fall as much as I could bear to or could stand to listen to, but you definitely heard this rig from across the RC group. You know, every time this thing fell, everyone in the whole group would be looking over at me like, Jesus, man, is that thing okay? Because it makes some beefy noises, especially on sandstone. But I was trying to abuse it. I was trying to see if it would break, especially you know, I've heard from people that these tabs that RC Speedy includes for the link mounting solution aren't necessarily the strongest, but I beat on this thing all day long down in Sand Hollow or down in southern Utah, which is not an easy environment for rigs to survive in, and besides having to get flipped over a few times, we really didn't have much of a problem. It stood up to all of the abuse that I put it through. I threw in a 4S battery towards the end of the day, and I realized I should have been running a 4S battery the whole time. I have a 2850 kV or a 2800. I think it's 2850. It's the slate, the Castle slate that comes in the kit with the Mamba X. I definitely would say that this is at least for this rig and the way that these tires are set up and the gear ratios are with the stock axle gear ratios, definitely a 4S rig if I was to recommend to you a particular option. This was a pretty cool technical line I thought that I found myself in. I ended up switching up camera angles here so we could see a little bit better what's going on, but kind of an interesting like 3 stem of cracks that all comes to a head right here, or all comes to a connection point right in the center. That's basically underneath the skid plate right now, and so you kind of have to work your way into the crack and try to keep yourself balanced while also avoiding the big hole right in the center. You can see me kind of working the dig and the overdrive functions here, and that's what it took. I mean, it seriously took everything that this rig had, every little feature and function that I could utilize on this rig to get the bite necessary to get this thing to hook and pull itself over this ledge. Which is funny, you know, looking at it, it's really not that intense of a ledge, especially if you were in some sort of a comp rig, but being in this scale of a rig, I actually had quite a good time just kind of playing around with this, putting it into dig, seeing where I could get the traction, seeing where I could pull myself. As you can see, really stuck in that big hole right now. I'm trying to fight my way out of it at this moment, and having some issues with the dig engagement. But yeah, basically just trying to see what the functions and features that the VFD twin transmission offers, seeing if they are going to pay dividends here in such a big, hefty, top-heavy rig. And I would say that they definitely did. In this scenario, especially, this line showcases it pretty well. definitely just getting sucked into that hole over and over again, trying to use my dig to get some sort of bite on that driver's side in the front so that I don't keep pulling myself with the passenger side. But then I notice here that that passenger side front is getting a really, really good bite in dig. So I actually just kind of embrace it, use dig again, get a really, really, really good compression ratio on that, and then pop the dig into neutral and then into forward. Obviously I had to go over that middle option, but that bite was enough to keep it through the middle option until I could get drive to the rear tires and just push that passenger side tire over that ledge. Same kind of situation here, trying again to use that dig and showcase what it's capable of. And you know, honestly, I must say that it is capable of far more than I was anticipating. I don't know that this scenario here where I was trying to use it, it necessarily paid off, just because I ended up pulling off to the other side. That was not the hook that I was trying to do with it, but it's the hook that I got, and it ended up working out. And there were definitely plenty of situations that day where the VFD twin transmission was paying dividends, being in such a big rig. But guys, that's all I've got for this video. This was a long haul. I appreciate you guys making it to the end. If you did make it to the end, if you're watching this, you did. If you liked this one, there was a lot of content in this. This was a ton of content to try to edit down and try to get it into a format that worked really well. So let me know what you guys thought in the comment section down below. Give it a like if you did like this video. And of course, as always, subscribe to High Noon Hobby if you want to see more awesome content like this. Every Friday, every Sunday, maybe even more weekly content coming in the 2023 season. We'll see what we can conjure up. Definitely don't forget to get yourself entered into the 2K giveaway. The link to that is down in the description. It's highnoonhobby.com/2K giveaway. Make sure you do that before December 30th, 11:59 p.m. MST, and then we will be doing the giveaway drawing for that, or the announcement of the winner on January 1st, 2023, to kick off the 2023 High Noon season in style. Plenty of cool events coming up, plenty of awesome footage, awesome coverage that we have in store for 2023. I am really, really stoked, guys, and I'm also super tired and still kind of sick. So I appreciate you watching this video. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.